For as many fans of anime that exist, there's an ocean of genres and subgenres waiting to be discovered, consumed, and spat back out in the form of funky figurines or Blu-ray Super Ultra HD re-releases. None more anticipated by myself than the continuation of one of my favorite guilty pleasure shows, High School of the Dead. The big titties flopping anime genre is not one that I was immediately attracted to. The idea of sitting alone in my room watching scantily clad 2D shorties engaging in wacky hijinks, that's kinda lame in my opinion, and where some of my favorite shows do showcase these things, it's pretty obvious I only watch those for the plot. I first discovered High School of the Dead during the springtime of my youth as a wee and unassuming 8th grader whose pastimes included playing copious amounts of Minecraft, Chrono Trigger, and trying way too hard to be the edgy anime protagonist that I was digi-destined to be. Look guys, in all honesty, I couldn't tell you how exactly I found myself to be watching this anime. It was a major departure from what my tiny shonen addicted self was used to, and what I do know is that once I saw my shorty Takagi, dude, do I really even need to keep saying anything? Not only did this show completely skew my idea of what women my age would act and look like in the years to come, it also cemented arguably the best aspect of myself, and that's my icy and cool demeanor. But like I said, it's arguable, and I kind of just needed something funny to add to the script. But in terms of answering the question of what High School of the Dead actually is, in my opinion, High School of the Dead is one of those animes that a lot of people have definitely seen, but if you're the one in the friend group that ever decides to bring it up, you will forever be known as a group weeb or perv. I mean, I suppose you could call it a gift and a curse, but in my case, in my friend groups, talking about anime, like, that was already bad on its own, but talking about anime with, like, you know, chicks with, like, you know, very, very voluptuous females and what have you, that was pretty easy roasting material, to say the least. Anyway, without further ado, let's dive into the first episode of High School of the Dead. Our story begins with my boy Takashi, lonely and upset in his feelings, and you may be asking yourself why. Well, it's simple. Years prior to when the anime picks up, my girl Rei makes a promise to Takashi that one day she will marry him. As you can imagine, in the time between childhood and young adolescence, Rei gets tired of Takashi being a dickhead and ultimately breaks that promise and gets with someone who genuinely appreciates her. More on that later. Before I blaze through the rest of the plot, I do want to say that this might be one of the worst character introductions I've ever seen. I don't know what it is about this scene that bothers me, but maybe it's, you know, Takashi acting like a complete dickhead about something that Rei promised him as a kid, or maybe it's just I just don't like this scene for whatever reason. But, you know, for all you younger and older guys out there that have eventually stumble across this video, do not act like Takashi in this scene. It's not cool, it's not cute, and no one, let alone ladies, appreciates you pouting like a little kid. That's my weekly PSA, and I'm just gonna leave it at that. But following our introduction to both Takashi and Takagi, who promptly called our protagonist out for being a bitch nigga, we find ourselves watching as the teachers end up being bitten by this guy who's out in the front. He's a zombie, he's not a guy, he's a zombie. And one of the teachers ends up getting bitten, thus propelling us into the titty-infused story that we've all been waiting for. What ensues is blood, gore, and romance, and some well-appreciated characterization that I definitely did not expect the first time I watched this anime. We fast forward a few minutes to find Takashi bursting to a random classroom before we discover Rei, her boyfriend Tazashi, and Takagi are all in this class. There are a few more main characters that we see, but we'll get to them later. Takashi tells everyone how he just saw the faculty get bodied and that they need to make like a banana and split. Before Rei calls this goofy motherfucker out for wildin', she basically calls this man whack, and as you can imagine, the normal response in this situation would be, Takashi slaps the flavor out of Rei's mouth, as Tazashi and the rest of the class kinda just let it happen. That begs the question, where the fuck was the teacher at during this whole, like, interaction? As I'm watching this for the second time, maybe it's just me, but I didn't see a teacher anywhere. And if this high school was obviously lacking before the zombies came. That's all I'm gonna say. Transition to the next scene where Hisashi, T-Money, and Ray are all getting strapped up to handle the situation. Some real gangsta shit. The gang does get suitably armed until Ray decides to ask Hisashi where his weapon is, and I couldn't quite decide if this response bothered me or not, but my boy hit her with the "it's fine, I'm a black belt in karate" line, and it was kind of fire, but at the same time it was also kind of whack. And looking back on my first time watching this episode, like way back when, this is when I knew he was not making it into episode 2, and that was like, I was in the 8th grade. Things suddenly take a turn for the worse when Ray tries contacting your pops through the emergency line. The automated voice is like, "Yo, our line is booming, son. Call back after the apocalypse. Goodbye." Before the trio even has time to process how the emergency line could be down, the principal chimes in on the intercom. This is when shit gets crazy, because as he's talking on the intercom, he gets bodied. Live for the entire school to hear. Niggas start wilding, teachers get trampled, and the main trio decide that going through the management building is the best way to get out of the school and avoid the Walking Dead. Until it's not. Within moments of leaving the building, Ray gets attacked by a horny ass zombie. You guys think I'm joking, but this zombie teacher immediately goes for her goodies the second she tries approaching him. Long story short, Ray turns Super Saiyan on this fool because she's a president of the martial arts club, of course, until they realize he's dead. So they have to figure out another way to stop him, which they do, but not before Hisashi gets munched on like a fruit flavored snack. Look, I know I've seen this before, and I know that, I've already gone through this whole entire process before, but I told you fools he wasn't going to survive the episode, and King Revolt is hardly ever wrong, suckers. T-Money and the Terror Squad end up making their way to the rooftops to barricade themselves in. When they look out over the city and just see how screwed everything is, a lady is getting eaten by like 80 zombie dudes, the military flies over and they see people dying but don't do shit about it, and as the gang proceeds to kill more zombies, we get a few scenes of what's happening within the school. A girl ends up sacrificing her best friend to the zombies before becoming a number 2 combo herself, and a guy literally just hops out of a window. As we check back in on our favorite group of assholes, we find out that Hisashi is turning, and his last wish is to die as a human rather than some mindless corpse. Obviously his wish doesn't come true, but more on that in the next episode of Educational Facility of the Recently Deceased. In conclusion, there are definitely some aspects of this anime that are over-exaggerated, but watching, I remembered how it caught my attention, held it, and despite all of the ass and titties, I actually enjoyed it. I was going to do a more gung-ho, unscripted take on the whole series, but the recording, as good as it was, just wasn't quite as punchy and on track as I wanted it to be. So I think putting out these scripted, episodic takes might be the move, but I'll still kind of feel it out. And, in the meantime, like, subscribe, and definitely share and comment. I want you guys to give that like button some hell, because members of the Undead Legion are unrelenting, and that is going to be my motto from today forward. I love you guys, and I will catch you in the next King's retelling of High School of the Dead.